couldn't get my programmers to come with me today, so we're taking a little bit of a different look at things from systems, and then I have two really short presentations. And this is coming out of the fact that I'm the Primo project lead for the Tri-University Group Consortium. I've been a project lead for a couple of years. So the first one I'm going to talk about is just the problem of how to get people who are helping you test, especially when the software has gone through a major upgrade, how to get them to actually test what you want them to test. Because I would find that you'd say, obviously the Primo team would do some testing, there's only about 5 or 6 of us. We would say, can you test this for us? And someone would say, yeah, it works great. I think, but there's known bugs, so surely you would have run across something. So what are people actually testing? And what I found is that when you're dealing with library staff in general, you want to get them involved in the process. They're going to use the software differently than you do, who actually knows the software. So you want to get their perspective on it, but they don't necessarily know how to test. They maybe haven't been involved in that type of thing before, so we need a little bit of guidance. They also don't have a lot of time for testing because that's not really their job, so they need to be able to kind of test efficiently for you. So if you just say to them, can you test this? Maybe they'll spend 15 minutes just running a few searches, and that might not be what you need. So when we went to Primo 3 up last year, and for those of you who know a little bit about the discovery layers, Primo 3 was a major rewrite of the Primo discovery layer by Ex Libris, so it affected a lot of areas. My problem was that the testers we have in TUG are used to dealing with testing ILS upgrades. So they test the circulation module, they test the cataloging module, they test the acquisition module. They don't usually test the OPAC. They don't really look at the user interface. They're just making sure they can charge things out. In terms of cataloging, we just make sure we can open a record, we can edit the record, we can save the record, that sort of thing. With the discovery layer, you're now actually testing the user interface, so it's not what they're used to looking at. Also, because we've only had Primo for a couple of years, the Primo team knows the interoperability issues and the inner workings of Primo really well, but our greater staff component doesn't, so it's hard to know what to look for. And we really do need some specific interactions tested, and not all of those things I can do. So I can't sign out a book and then sign it back in and check what's happening to the calculated availability statement, because I don't have access to the circulation module. So I would have to be running up and downstairs with books and going to the circulation desk to do this. So it makes sense to use your other staff, but they don't know what needs to be done. And the other problem we run up again when we're doing a major upgrade is we're actually starting on our staging server first. Our regular server, our production of Primo has over 4 million records in it. Our staging server only has 200,000 records in it. So if you just release people on it and say, test this for us, if they don't understand the content of it, we get things back as, oh, well, I found this has the Waterloo holdings, but the Laurier ones are missing. Well, the Laurier ones are missing because we actually haven't loaded the Laurier record on our staging server. So you have to explain a little bit about what it is they're testing. So the way we solved this past summer is we actually just did something which I'm sure is fairly straightforward, but we created test scripts for them. So we went through and I thought of all the different functions in Primo. So we have the My Account area, we have the real-time availability, which is supposed to be happening when things get done in circulation. We have the interactability with things like SFX. People can send things to their eShelf, they can send things to RefWorks, there's all sorts of things they can do. And so we just created test scripts. So here's one for testing the My Account area, where I could have someone in circulation double check it for a particular user. Is the list of loans that Primo is getting from Voyager, is it actually displaying what they actually do have out on loan? Are the due dates correct? Because sometimes we found that maybe Voyager is sending things in the wrong format to Primo. If they're supposed to be able to sort by title, can they actually do that? Are the fines correct? Because sometimes we found it wasn't. And so on. And here's just another one just on general testing, because of course you also just want people just to search and see what happens on the page. And we found that by giving people spreadsheets, it's kind of like someone was talking about, if you get the uptake with your staff, if you give them an interface that they can work with. People understand spreadsheets, they have a list that they can go by. They don't have to fill this out for me. They can just send me an email and tell me that something's not working. They can send me a Snagit, they can send me a Word doc. I don't really care, but at least they have a list that they can kind of go by. And then the other thing is, if you give them a list of tests to do, they can split it up now. So if you have 3 people in Circ, they only have 20 minutes each to test. Well, one of them can do the My Account, one of them can do the request, and one of them can do kind of the real-time availability. So they can now split up the work internally and also across tugs so that you're using their time efficiently. And then also to help them out, because obviously what you're testing on, you need certain examples. And I found this out, did the collaborative testing with Ex Libris for Primo 3. And we were working on a database that wasn't our own, so we didn't know what's in it. Well, I don't know what multi-volume set records they have in there. I don't know something that has multiple items. I don't know something that's just out on 1 hour loan. So for the sample thing, the other cataloger on the Primo team, Matt Tales and I, we went through and we just found them some examples of, here are some things in the Primo staging server that are non-circulating. So make sure you can't make a hold request on it. Here's some things that are on hourly loan. Here's some multi-volume sets. Here's some AV materials that you can test out that kind of search on. So that they're not spending all of their testing time trying to find an example record that they can then run their test on. And we found that we got better feedback this way, and we also heard feedback even from management staff that this actually was very helpful to them. They knew exactly what to search. They could divide up that work, and we got some valuable feedback. And it also means, I think, not all the testing is relying on the Primo team, and I think it also gets more staff getting some expertise in this discovery system that we've been using a few years now, and at the moment the expertise is just in a few people. So by getting other people involved in the testing, they're actually learning more about the system, and they've learned things that now that they can use either on their API information desk or that they didn't even realize the system can do, and they found it out during testing. So that was our approach to working on that. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on my kind of quick talk on that. Jump on that.
Not a question actually, but just a comment. I just saw a brief talk where someone said that bug testing actually is a great way for developers and or even non-computing people and computing people to kind of find a common language. It's nice to hear that you have that additional benefit that comes from just running around and testing.
Right, and then after a while they get used to me saying things like calculated availability statement, and they start to know what I'm talking about, and when they're getting to there. So it does help us talk to each other again, I think, as well.
Thank you.
And tell them to use something like Snagit to grab the pictures too. Otherwise, you don't know what example they use. And then the other thing that I thought I would talk about, this is, as said, because I knew I wouldn't be able to contribute much to the Hackfest yesterday, was something that just happened a few weeks ago, where some of you know we're trialing Primo Central. So we have Primo as our discovery layer. Primo Central is that centralized index, so it's actually a service from Ex Libris. So for some of you who have Summon that's doing the same type of thing. So within Primo, we're searching a centralized index. And we're running it as a trial because we're not sure yet really what does it mean to have everything in one search box. We want to answer a lot of those questions. But we also want to have a lot of feedback on this. So feedback from our staff and feedback from our users. And so when we started talking about feedback, we had some requirements. Obviously, people wanted to have feedback on the trial. We wanted to gather a little bit of information about the users if they would give it to us. So if they're undergrad, a graduate, a library staff, faculty, and also which faculty they're from. Because when you're doing a trial on a centralized index, perhaps the humanities people are finding more things than the science people and so on. We want to get a sense of the content and the usefulness that are out there. So we wanted to gather information. We wanted to be able to respond back to the user because many of you, we have feedback in our regular Primo system, and quite often it's not feedback, it's just questions, like how do I do this, I ran into this problem. It's not this system is great or I don't like this system, it's just I was searching for this journal and had trouble. So we wanted to be able to respond back to them. But we wanted to keep track of the comments and questions sent to the user. So in our regular Primo, we have a feedback form that was created at that time, and we have it going into database, and we get an email. And of course, now all the correspondence happens in email, and it's not updating our database. So we kind of wanted to keep track of everything, assign things to staff, and have everything in one place. So for those of you who are in systems departments, which I'm not, this probably sounds awfully like a kind of ticket tracking type thing. So we're gathering user feedback, but we're actually using kind of a ticket tracking system to do this, so we can keep their feedback, or we can actually respond to it if it's actually an actual issue. And our contract developer, Adrian, had been looking at RT request tracker for a while now because he wants to maybe create something for our systems department. So we said, well, why don't we try it for this Primo Central trial and see how it works for feedback. So it is an issue tracking system. It's an open source system. We chose a very minimal setup. He set this up in a very short amount of time, so it doesn't look the prettiest, but it's usable. But he assures me you can do all sorts of customization. It keeps it in one place, and you can respond to the emails generated by RT in your own inbox, and it'll respond and it'll back to the system. So if I, the user, receive the confirmation email, I can respond to it, and then my question goes back in the system, and then if I respond to the user, they get that email again, and it keeps it all in one place. This is probably very small. It's just this form that he modified for when people actually go into Primo Central, so it's kind of hard to see. But they can put in their email if they want a response back, just subject, or comment box, and that sort of thing. But I'm actually going to go over into RT. So how many of you, I know some systems departments do use it, how many people use RT?
Don't use it now, but I use it.
Or you've used it before, so some of you know. So I've just logged into RT, and so it's just a request tracking system, and I'm just going to go into one of my test forms here. So this one just kind of tells you basic information. When I submitted this comment, I actually said that I was an undergrad student in the faculty of arts, obviously make that up, but it's got my email. But what's kind of nice for us is that this is my original comment. I can't find any anthropology articles. It sent an email out to Adrian because he's watching the system. It sent an email to my Gmail confirming that we received their comment. Then me, as Alison at Waterloo, as opposed to me at Gmail, changed the subject line because I hadn't put in the subject, and cataloged on me. And I just responded back to them, what anthropology topic are you trying to search? And I received that question in my Gmail, and so it recorded those outgoing emails. And it also then recorded my comment, which is just waiting for a reply from the user. That didn't actually go out to the user, it's just a comment, not a reply. And then I emailed back to the library that I needed articles on Franz Boas to give them some more information. It's gone back into there, so me as a library person can now can deal with that. And of course, like any tracking system, you can comment on it, you can forward things, you can resolve it, you can take the ticket, and that sort of thing. So we've decided to use that and see if that's going to be a useful thing for keeping track of our user data. And hopefully at the end, when we're actually getting someone to analyze the data, it means that nothing's been lost. It's all here in this database, and I'm sure Adrian can run some reports and that and get that out for the people. Because we are going to be having some user focus groups. We're going to be doing